on any issue, we all benefit from opening our minds and hearts to other viewpoints. The library serves everyone in our community through our collections, programs, services, and spaces. All are welcome here, and we celebrate and respect every member of our community. It is my privilege to introduce FVRL's Executive Director, Amelia Shelley. Amelia oversees all the Fort Vancouver Regional Libraries, working with the Board of Trustees on creating district policies, setting strategic priorities, and overseeing financial decisions. Amelia.
Thank you and good evening. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to know by show of hands who lives in Washington State, and how about Oregon? Keep your hands up if you live in Oregon. All right, thank you so much, I appreciate that. And thank you for your willingness to attend and join us this evening. The Fort Vancouver Regional Library District is a nearly 70-year-old institution serving 4,200 square miles of Southwest Washington through 15 libraries and 2 bookmobiles. One of our organizational values is a fundamental belief in the importance of protecting intellectual freedom. Public libraries provide numerous opportunities to exercise that right through reading materials, public programs, access to technology, and other resources, and we leave it up to the individual to choose for themselves what is of interest to them. The library can be a mirror of your own beliefs or a window to look into others. The choice is yours. If we are doing our job as librarians well, our library should offer something of interest to everyone in our communities. Communities that we know are filled with diverse people of different abilities, genders, ethnicities, cultures, languages, sexual orientations, and faiths. We believe the same fundamental right of intellectual freedom is extended to parents when making decisions for their own children on what to read or attend. For the past 9 months, the library's Board of Trustees and I have been listening to community members, most of them, but not all, in opposition to a children's program called Drag Queen Story Hour. One such program occurred in this room on February 9th, and one on July 13th at Saturday in the Park Pride. We have heard from citizens through email, social media, phone calls, and in person at our monthly board meetings. And while we welcome these conversations, we believe that there have been questions and concerns raised to which we have not been afforded the opportunity to respond. In February, we hosted a Drag Queen Story Hour and filled this room to capacity and had to turn people away. In July, we hosted a story time at Pride in the Park with over 200 people in attendance. While we have heard from people with questions and concerns about this program, we have had outstanding attendance and requests from the community for additional programming, including more of Drag Queen Story Hour. We welcome these conversations, and tonight we've gathered together a group of panelists who can respond to many of the questions that have been raised. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening's panel, Temple Lentz. Locally known as the host of Hello Vancouver, Temple has been a resident of Vancouver since 2006 and was elected to the Clark County Board of Counselors in 2018. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Chicago and has a background in nonprofit and private sector marketing and management. In 2017, she was named an Iris Award winner for women's leadership in Clark County, by Clark College, and as an Impactful Woman of the Year by Impactful Women Northwest. Please help me welcome Temple Lentz.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you to all of our panelists who are going to have a moment to self-introduce and let us know more about them. But first, wanted to thank the library for holding this event and allowing us to have a community conversation about Drag Queen Story Hour. Tonight we have seven panelists from Vancouver and nearby who represent different parts of our community and different sectors, and who are able to speak to some of the concerns and interests that we've heard for the last 9 months. Libraries are the heart of communities, and they represent the spirit of learning, community, and service to all, regardless of their need or ability. And we are here tonight in the spirit of learning and sharing information. So we're going to start with introductions of our panelists, and then we're going to move into questions. As Kelly said at the beginning, we did solicit questions from the community, which we were going to have a section of the program reserved to project them and answer them, but due to a system-wide internet outage, we're punting a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is, we did see in a lot of the community questions overlap with the pre-prepared questions that we wrote. They were designed based on comments and questions that we've gotten over the last 9 months. So I'm going to go through the prepared questions section, and where appropriate, I'm going to pull in some of the community questions that we were going to project. And what I'll do is I will let you know that this is the phrasing from one of our community questions, and then I may also say the question that I was going to ask so that we can hear all the parts of the questions. I'm doing it a little bit on the fly, so please bear with me if I have to cross-check my notes. We've talked about the fact that we want this to be a respectful space for a productive conversation. So we believe that all voices have a right to be heard. All people have a right to their opinions. We do ask that everybody in the room please conduct yourselves with respect, and please don't disrupt. If you have anything, whether it's cheers and applause or anything else, please try not to disrupt the room. Let's keep the conversation going. We've only got about an hour. We have a lot of panelists and a lot of questions. And so that is actually one of the things that I wanted to turn to our panel and remind you of the conversation we had a little bit ago about time. What we're going to do is we're not going to go down the line and have every panelist answer every question. We're going to talk to some of the things. Everybody does represent a slightly different sector and slightly different interests, so I'm probably going to tailor the questions to 1 to 2 of you. If anybody has a burning desire to answer one of the questions, let me know. Don't disrupt the room. And we'll also ask that you please try to keep your answers in general to a couple of minutes. Some of the answers are going to be complicated, some of these are going to be longer. I'm not necessarily going to cut you off, but I may gently remind you that we need to move on. So, fair warning. All right, so moving into self-introductions, can we just start on this end with Mackenzie?
I don't know how to turn it on. Thanks. How did you get for arriving late? My name is Mackenzie Dunham, and is that better? I'll be loud. My name is Mackenzie Dunham, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I co-own a practice in Vancouver called the Wild Heart Society. I'm a child mental health specialist, and I specialize in working with LGBTQ kids.
My name is Chelsea. I'm a parent and community member.
My name is Joanne. I have been a speech-language pathologist, a special ed teacher for 10 years. I've been a pastor for 25 years. I have a master's of divinity and a doctorate of ministry.
And my name's Michael McCutcheon. I am the current president of Gay Pride here in Vancouver, and we work with the Southwest 5 counties for scholarships for LGBTQ kids, as well as community awards identifying people who have helped and improved the lives of LGBTQ people. Thank you.
My name is Owen McHatton, also known as Unmalicious Mercury. I've been a drag queen for 12 years. I am also Tree Empress 45 of the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Raintree Empire, which has been helping the LGBTQ community since 1974.
My name is Becky Sandal. I'm the Youth Services Specialist at the Longview Public Library. North of here, we've hosted 3 drag queen story times in the past 14 months, and I also presented on a panel about drag queen story time at the Washington Library Association conference earlier this year.
Hi folks, my name's Jennifer Lanier. I have been I've been an actor for over 40 years. I'm a professional actor, doing lots of theater, film, and television around. I also have been performing as a drag king for about 20 years. I am local here to Vancouver. I am on the board of Saturday in the Park, Vancouver Pride. I am also a wife, a mother, a friend, a supporter, and I have been a member of every library in every town I have ever lived in since I could read at the age of 6.
Thank you. Let's give our panel a round of applause. Thank you for being here. I also want to say, Jen, that it's a shame with all that theater training you haven't learned how to project.
too bad.
All right, so we're going to go into our first question, which is to cover some of the basics. So I'm going to direct this question to Owen and Jen, but can you tell us what is drag?
You want to start or do I want to start?
Oh, I'm going, ladies first.
Drag is a artistic expression that's what I call it. That is for me. This is my outlet. I've been an artist since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, doing things in doing painting, singing, dancing. When I found the art of drag, I fell in love. I fell in love with it at an early age, seeing people and members of the LGBTQ community because they were family, they were friends. And I do have drag queens in my actual family. So I grew up seeing this and seeing how beautiful and how wonderful it can be. So drag to me is wonderful and anyone can do it. You don't have to be a male, you don't have to be a female, you can be whatever you want. And seeing the love and the joy from people who are performing and those we are performing for, that just makes my day. Drag is art.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you there. Drag has been since people have been. There has been some form of entertainment done to shed a light on who we are, sometimes to give a little wink and make a little fun of people in higher powered positions, there's a number of ways that drag has been as a matter of fact, in the United States, I think, drag has been around since we have been a country, frankly. And drag entertainment often is based in humor. It's often based in
Parody.
In parody, and a lot of times in shedding a light on how we walk through the world as people. Right? So the type of drag that I do, a drag king, where what I do is I will dress up, and I will dress up in different iconic ways as different male icons that we see in the world. The cowboy, the soldier, the executive, the guy at the bar, there's so many different ways that we have found to do that, to make those expressions of delight, of entertainment, of making people laugh. And actually, just to throw this in there, I'm also an educator in what I've been doing. I've been working with children all through my artistic career as an actor. And I've been asked by people when I've gone to do other shows, I have a solo show I travel around with, and I've been asked by schools to bring my drag character, Bruce the Drag King, in to have a chat with, say, the most recent one was the 6th grade in a school in Greensboro, North Carolina, because they wanted to have an opportunity to talk about gender and to talk about the social constructs of gender and what gender is and what gender isn't. And they thought it would be a great and entertaining way to have someone come up who was a professional actor to be able to talk to folks about gender cues and what we look at and think of as a man, as a woman. Is that always the case, or is that not always the case? So yeah, it's a wide-ranging thing.
Excellent, thank you. Now, I'm going to direct this next question to Becky, which is, we've heard a little bit about what drag is. Can you tell us what Drag Queen Story Hour is?
Sure. So there's a founding organization called Drag Queen Story Hour, and actually the story times that we've offered at the Longview Library aren't associated with that organization, mostly just because we don't need to be. But they're the ones who originated the idea in San Francisco and New York, and have kind of made it a popular thing to do. Because of the popularity of Drag Queen Story Hour, we had somebody on our library staff who was interested in doing it so that her children could attend, and then had some questions from people in the community saying hey, I've seen this. Is this something that might be offered here? So when I met Goddess, who's a local drag queen in Longview, I asked her if she would be interested in doing it, and that's how we got started. It is essentially a story time like we would do traditionally in the library, where we read books and sing songs. But instead of being led by me or a different librarian, it's led by the drag queen.
Okay. And I'm going to follow up on this question by asking Annalicious. You've led a story hour, and you're doing the upcoming one as well. Can you talk about your experience leading the Drag Queen Story Hour?
Well, the way I look at my standing doing Drag Queen Storytime, we're the living embodiment of a fairy tale. We can be the queen, the princess, our drag kings, they're the king, the mighty knight. We're the living embodiment of these storybooks. We can build that fantasy because that's what we do. We put on our costumes and our hair, and we just shine. And we see those smiles, and seeing the smiles from not only the children but the adults this year in July, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing seeing the unity of the children, the teenagers, the adults, enjoying what I was enjoying. I was enjoying reading the stories because I remember growing up reading the stories to my little brother or to my nephews or my nieces. And now I get to read to even more children and teenagers and parents and just anyone who wants to enjoy it. I had a blast. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've done in my last 36 years of life. This is one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done.
Excellent. So the next question, and this is my attempt to sort of cover both sets of questions here. We're going to dig a little bit more deeply into drag and drag story time. And I just to give you guys a heads up, I'm interested, Chelsea, as a parent, if you could answer, and also Owen or Jen, you guys can decide. So this is a question that was submitted online, and says that the library invited children to the second Drag Queen Story Hour that was performed at a gay pride event in July. The story hour was in close proximity to the main stage, and adult entertainment performers dressed in see-through or other sexually revealing outfits were walking around in plain sight of the children that the library had invited. The question that I had about this that I wanted to ask was, one of the critiques that the library has heard is that drag is adult entertainment and generally explicitly sexual. So why then would a drag queen story hour be appropriate for children?
Well, yes, I will say the start and the basis of drag was a long time ago. I mean, Shakespeare time.
Absolutely.
You're a Shakespearean actor.
Well, yes, I'm
Yes.
actually one of the artistic directors of Original Practice Shakespeare in Portland.
Yes. And the word drag was used as dressed as girl because women could not be on the stage. So it does have more adult, more theatric groundings. And of course, Stonewall, it was illegal. It was in nightclubs. It was what it was. But now with the mainstreaming of drag, everyone is becoming welcome. And whether or not it is adult or whether you think it's for everyone has their own opinions, and I'm not negating that. But it is also our choice as the drag queen to clean up our act. We can judge whether or not one thing is appropriate or not appropriate. Yes, we had drag queens going on the stage, but from my spot at Drag Queen Storytime, I couldn't see the stage. I couldn't see anything past a wall of supportive family, friends, teenagers, adults, children. I couldn't see any of that. I saw what was right in front of us, a wall of wonderful smiles. We can turn anything. We can do things at a nightclub, which I worked in nightclubs for many, many years. I still do. I still perform in nightclubs. But we do family-friendly things. All you have to say is this appropriate for your niece or nephew to see? No, do something else. Disney is a wonderful thing. But we can shut it on and off. what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. It's common sense.
Well, I think that that's certainly true with many entertainers.
Yes.
We are able, obviously, we're able to construct a set that makes sense for whatever audience that we're in. And actually, it is very true. I don't know if you all are performers or not, but that is something that we do. I mean, we will create a performance that works for the audience that we're going to be seen by. Now, if I'm doing a show for the 6th graders at a school in Greensboro, then of course it's not going to be the same as a show that I would do at 11 o'clock p.m. at a club someplace in Portland. I mean, as you said, it's just common sense.
Thank you. And so, Chelsea, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to reframe the question a little bit. We've heard from our drag performers that drag is multifaceted, and it isn't just one thing or another. As a parent, how would you make the decision whether drag queen story hour is something that's appropriate for your child?
Well, I think, just to kind of go off of some of what they were saying, it's still a story hour. And so someone is in character, reading the book, but we're still talking about books that are for 3 to 8-year-olds and teenagers. And we're still doing songs that are for little kids, and they're still doing dances that are for little kids. So it's still a story hour. It's just being given to us in a format of someone who's doing it in a theatrical way.
Okay. Next, we've heard from some members of our community that gender is fixed, and gender fluidity is not something that should be promoted because it will confuse children. Mackenzie, this question is for you. If you could address this concern about gender fluidity and confusion.
That it confuses kids?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of things confuse kids, first of all. And I think that our job as parents and community members is to help them see the world from many different ways and help them to develop and be critical thinkers. I think that's really important. And they are unable to do that if they don't have all the information. Children who are gender explorative or gender expansive come about that in all different kinds of ways. And sometimes it holds true for the rest of their life and sometimes it does not. So what is important for them is that they have the freedom to do that. When we don't give them the freedom to do that, it's actually a very shaming experience for them and tells them that curiosity is unsafe, and it actually prevents or stunts their ability to learn other things, and it makes learning things that are different scary. And that doesn't just stick with gender, that also includes race and religion and many other things that they are up against that are different.
So a follow-up question on that then, and this is one that came in from the community. What do children benefit by having a reading by drag queens? Please.
Okay. I think that there are many things that I could say about this. One, I think that when a performer reads a story, it becomes alive for them, and it turns it from just being words on a page to being something that they're engaged in. And if you have gone your entire life not being exposed or not seeing yourself represented in literature, it's going to make literature very unappealing to you. And so when you are able to see yourself represented in literature or on television or in any other form, it makes it so that you feel like you're included, you're important, and you're valued.
And Becky, yes.
I would like to add the really important thing for our story times is that they emphasize kindness and acceptance of difference, and that we promote kids growing up in an environment that's free from bullying, that they accept each other, and that they see that they're in a community where everybody has something to contribute, that even if they're different, they're still welcome at the library, because everybody is.
Excellent. And I'm going to stay on this one again. Michael, could you address this question as well as what you see as the benefit of a drag queen story hour?
The biggest benefit, going back off of what Mackenzie said, is seeing yourself. I was an educator for many years, and both the public schools and private schools, I worked in an orphanage for many, many years with children who had no idea about seeing representations of themselves. And Drag Queen Story Hour does that. It shows a wider sphere, a more diverse group of people, and that's an amazing gift. I also come from a culture, my background is English is not my first language. And I came from north of this country called Canada. In case anyone doesn't know, it's there. And it is a different country, trust me. So French was my first language, and I had to learn English in the American schools. A very difficult process when you don't speak the language and nothing in front of you is that language. It's the same with the culture. If the culture isn't there and you don't see that culture in front of you, you start wondering, am I alone? Am I the only one who is like this? And those amazing, diverse people provide that. They show that there's so many of us, whether it is racism, whether it is sexism, whether it is as a result of gender, sexuality. The diversity just improves our child's lives.
Related to that, I think we've heard from members of our community that there's a feeling that at 6 years old, a child doesn't necessarily know who they are, what they're going to be, what their preferences may or may not be. So why expose them to something that may influence that decision? I feel like I'm asking a mental health question, so I'm going to start with Mackenzie.
So, children know their gender very early. We come out of the womb, gender. It happens very quickly, and so, I mean, I could argue that we are exposing them to an entire world of what they should be from a very young age. You need not look further than a Target aisle to understand what I'm talking about with the pink and the blue. And there's gender reveal parties, right? And so part of exposing a 6-year-old to gender fluidity or differences in gender is to let them know that in case they were feeling this way, that they're okay, and that there are people like them, and that they're safe, and that they're still lovable. And those things, when we don't talk about it, it doesn't change that it's still there. So, but what it does do for kids is that it sets up a world where it feels like they have to hide, which is a very unsafe place for them to live.
Joanne, this one's for you. We had a question from a community member who asked, and they were directing this, I believe, at the library, why do you allow such a sinful group to promote their activity for all? A question that I had that is in the same vein is, we've heard that drag, and for some people, even the LGBTQ plus community are sinful and go against Christian teachings. Can you speak to that concern? In 2 minutes.
Wow. I feel like I've been speaking a lifetime to that question. I feel like for the entirety of my life, I have loved what I've found in the Bible, and especially I have loved the freedom that I read in the pages. I love the freedom of Psalm 139. God is with us when we are created, and we are created as good, and God smiles at us. and God loves us. And there's nowhere we can go, there's nothing we can do where God does not love us. There's this guy named Paul that is often used in this problem. But Paul writes, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, for God loves all people. I think if Jesus were here, he'd be having a really good time. He loved to go, I think it's true actually. He loved to go out on the margins. He loved to find the people who didn't think they were welcome, and he loved to pull them in. He loved to hear their stories. He loved to share their stories. He loved to pull them into community and affirm them exactly how they were. I have spent an entirety of my ministry grabbing onto those people who were feeling as if they did not belong in the church, much less in the kingdom of God. And it's sad and it's hurtful when we do that to our people. I think it makes God angry. It makes me angry. One of the most important things that ever happened to me was my best friend growing up for all of my young adulthood came out as gay when we both went off to different colleges. And I asked him why he didn't come out to me. And he said, well, you go to church. And I didn't want you to change your opinion of me. And so I've been finding other forms of my best friend in every church I've been in. And usually they're the children of the active members who won't come or are afraid to come. I'm privileged to serve a reconciling church right now. It's been reconciling for 25 years, which means it encourages all people to come and be exactly how they are. And that doesn't mean we have a church of only gay people. It means we have a church of big-hearted people, and we have a really good time together.
Is there anybody else on the panel who would want to?
Oh yeah, I just want to hop in there.
What a surprise.
Just comment. You know, there are a lot of people who seem to think that that somehow Christianity and gayness, Christianity and drag Christianity, and I don't know, those things are somehow completely separate. I don't usually talk a lot in public about my belief system or anything like that. I'm a Christian. I was, baptized at, 14 or whatever the age was that one did that, and became a member of my church, a Presbyterian church at the time, soon after that. And I spend time reading the Bible. I spend a lot of time talking to ministers. It is something my wife and I share. It is something that we're very, very proud of. And we haven't found this disconnect. And her father is a minister, and we talked to him as well. We haven't found a disconnect here. It seems that some folks are afraid of things being different than what they expected them to be, And I wonder sometimes if that has to do with what's going on every now and again, when people are thinking about a story hour that's going to be led by a drag performer. And I wonder, is it maybe just folk are a little afraid of a thing that they're not used to, a thing that they don't spend a lot of time around? No, I think it might be true, my friend. My sons have been around drag performers. They're sitting here. They've been around drag performers since, how old were you guys when you went to your first drag show? Like 11? Maybe something 9 and 11, I think.
I think I was in that show.
Yeah, you were actually. They were born men, boys. They were born male, right? They're both still male. I know one of my sons identifies as straight, and one of my sons identifies as wibbly wobbly, sexy wexy, I'm not really sure what, and that's fine. I like to think, and also my sons are exceedingly respectful of everybody they meet, especially when they don't know what's happening. I mean, they'll ask questions. They actually say, oh my gosh, that's a glorious scarf you're wearing, where did that come from? Or, hi, my name is, and what are your pronouns? Mine are he, him. you know, this is how my sons walk through the world now without even thinking about it. I'd like to think that a little bit of that maybe had to do with some of the people that they got to be around. I don't know. Maybe so.
All right. So another question about drag, and I'm just going to ask the audience or the community question about this, because it encompasses the other question that I had. And I'll address this first to our drag performers, but then others can weigh in. Are women being, quote, blackfaced by the drag queen image? Mary Cheney, daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, posted on her Facebook page, "Why is it socially acceptable as a form of entertainment for men to put on dresses, makeup, and high heels and act out every offensive stereotype of women, but it is not socially acceptable as a form of entertainment for a white person to put on blackface and act out offensive stereotypes of African Americans?"
Well, when I started drag in 2008, I identified as female. I was born female. Since then, I am a transgender man, but I was what we called a bio queen. And being a bio queen was very hard. It was very hard. It was a struggle going into a male-dominated world. I was scared. I was worried that I wouldn't be accepted. I was accepted with open arms because of my bravery to say, this is what I want to do. Yes, sometimes I have seen drag queens that make fun of female stereotypes, but I'll tell you one thing, women are revered in drag culture. The first brick at Stonewall was thrown by a transgender woman, a POC transgender woman. Women are a strong, strong part of the drag community, even though it may not look like it. Men who dress as drag queens, I can't tell you one drag queen that does not have the utmost respect for women. We stand with women, we help women, we've raised money for women's shelters and for women to have what they need.
No, that's true.
Women are a very strong base in the drag community, even though we may not always see them. We have very strong women in Portland that have been on the drag stage. Maria Peters-Lake is one. She is an amazing woman. We have transgender women that stand with us, and some of them dress better than I do. Women are not taken lightly. And I know it may look like that, and I apologize if I were to offend you for taking women lightly. My mother would smack me if I took women lightly, honestly, because that's how I was raised. I believe that what we are doing, dressing in drag, I'm sorry if you take it the wrong way, but we give the most respect to women for what we do.
You know, it's incredibly interesting to me. It's always fascinating. It seems like there are still folks out there who want to find some kind of reason to be able to do blackface. It's like they're trying to find reasons to. And I was like, ooh, let's grab drag and maybe we can play with that. Because it's very clear, my friends, what's wrong with blackface. It's exceedingly clear what's wrong with blackface. Blackface is specifically to put down, to shame, to degrade. Excuse me, I'm African American. I will tell you what blackface is about, my friend. I will tell you. It's to shame, to degrade, to make sure that black people understand they are not as good as white people, to tell those falsehoods.
You don't know your history.
Hey, folks,
Excuse me.
folks.
I know I'm wrong
Ma'am.
about it.
Ma'am,
You're not on the mic right now, honey. You're
Ma'am.
not on the mic. So, drag, right? Drag has no purpose to put down, shame, degrade women, ever. It is not about shaming, degrading, putting down men either, at all. It is about heightening things that are already there. It's about heightening the relationships we have. It's about, yes, sometimes laughing at what we do as men and women. Because, I mean, this is what we do. This is what entertainment is. It's what comedy's about. Right? Please.
And Chelsea.
I just wanted to add that, I think it's an environment that is breaking stereotypes, and it's actually allowing kids to come into the space and to show girls that they can be more masculine and to show boys that they can be more feminine. And I think there are a lot of parents in this day and age who are looking to allow their kids to express all sides of themselves and to be comfortable with that, and to raise their kids also in an environment where they see that in others and they feel comfortable with all sides of others.
Hallelujah.
And related to that, a question that came in from the community, and Chelsea, I'm going to give you first crack at it, but we can move on to, how does hearing diverse voices and viewpoints help a child develop a sense of their own identity and place in the world?
I think some of the stuff we've already talked about, reading books and seeing themselves in books and how that's important, whether you're talking about skin color, race, religion, gender, it's important to have that reflection. And this is a program that can bring that diversity to parents. And sometimes parents don't know where to go to be able to experience something like this. And this is a good starting point with people that they can go with their friends and with their neighbors. But it's important for kids to be experienced to diversity, to not only understand it, but to feel more comfortable with themselves, to learn how to talk, so they don't become like some of the generations that we're all currently struggling with talking about race and gender. And I think we would all agree on that we want to raise this next generation to be able to talk about this a little bit better than we've been able to so far.
Michael.
So one of the things I didn't talk about is the fact that I'm a dad, 4 kids, all adopted. I'm a grandfather with 8 and a great-grandfather with coming up to 5. So obviously I'm a little bit older, and I raised my kids with the greatest fairy tales and laughs and gender changes. They know I'm a gay man. My children are straight, otherwise I wouldn't be a granddad, just biologically speaking. And they are extremely respectful people. They understand that people come in lots of colors, shades, changes. Not everything is at face value, and that's important. I have my oldest son works at a paper mill, is an amazing young man with 4 glorious daughters. And unfortunately, I lost my daughter this year to a horrible disease, but she brought forth 3 amazing children. And that kind of representation of showing the diversity of where we came from is an amazing gift that she's passed on to her children.
Becky.
I like to think of the first time I felt really seen in a TV show I watched or a book I read, and what that meant to me personally, and to think, oh, I was 20 or something when that happened to me. What if it happened when I was 5 years old, and I could have lived like a more confident adolescence? That would have been amazing. And I think Drag Queen Storytime does that too, and also hopefully introduce people to the wide range of diverse resources we have at the library. And I think a lot of parents who come like that it's a way for them to ask their kids, do you have any questions about this? And sometimes kids just say no, but it's a nice, gentle way to kind of start that conversation if you want to.
Great. And Becky, I want to stay with you for the next question. It's a more operational question about like Drag Queen Story Hour, and I know that you don't work at this library, you're in Longview, but in general, since you've held the Drag Queen Story Times, this isn't something that the entire community agrees with. So why should the library spend time and energy hosting a program that can spark such anger for some members of the community?
A lot of times I'm really surprised by the amount of anger that's sparked. Honestly, when we first did it, I thought we'd probably get some complaints, but it really shocks me every time I hear stories of like how angry and sometimes violent people can be about reading books to children. And I guess I would just like to say that we have a mission in the libraries to promote literacy, lifelong learning, and to build community, and to represent the diversity of the people who we serve. And a drag queen storytime does all of those things really well. It serves our mission, people come, so it doesn't make sense for us not to do something because some people don't want to come to it when, like you said, there's so many people coming that you have to turn people away. Those people are part of our community. They pay taxes to the library, and they have just as much, right to be represented here as other people. If there's a reason that you think that the library isn't serving you, we'd love to hear ideas for how we could do that better.
Would anybody else on the panel like to pick that one up? Okay, then a related question to that. We've also heard, why doesn't the library also have Bible story hour or gun rights story hour?
We have a legal restriction to teaching religion in a public institution, of course, so we can't have a Bible story hour. But even if that wasn't the case, there are dozens of churches in our community that provide that service free of charge already, that better serve the community than we would trying to figure out how to do that, I think. And if someone wants to come to me with an idea for a gun rights story hour, I hear it. We'll see what it looks like, what the interest is, I'm not opposed to that.
So this one moves a little bit out into the broader community, but I think it would be important to address. And Michael, I'm going to start with you. As we've heard from the panel, and we can see in the media and in the world, many people, even today in 2019, struggle with gender identity and sexuality. And as we've seen from some of the responses to Drag Queen Story Hour, it can be rough out there for people who don't conform to normal expectations. So what resources are available here locally for people who are struggling, who may or may not have support, or who are simply seeking community?
All right, so for the last 7 years, I have been what everyone likes to call the face of Pride. I'm the president and chair for the event. During that event, we bring together, free of charge to the public, all of the churches, all of the services, medical. We do health testing free of charge for people who are looking to do health testing. We interview and bring people together with every agency that is there. On more than one occasion, unfortunately, we have someone who has said, I'm here and I think I'm going to commit suicide. And the one thing we do is immediately bring forward and bring them with other people who are also better equipped than myself to have the conversation, to talk to them, to find the services, the support they need. And those names of all of the events, all of the services are very public. We make sure that there's an entire list. The list is shared with everyone. And we try to make sure that everyone is open, welcome, come on down. There's no fences at Pride here in Vancouver. And so we get as many unpleasant people who feel it shouldn't happen. But we get even more people who find just how amazing it is. Also, we get a lot of people who are coming, who are straight people, who are coming for free health testing because they can't get it anywhere else. And we don't stop someone because you're straight. As far as we're concerned, Pride is an event that's open to the entire community. and we serve the entire community. It's a beautiful, wonderful, amazing event. If you've never been in July to Gay Pride over at Esther Shore Park, I recommend it highly, because it is a place where you will find people who don't necessarily agree with you and who do agree with you. We're open to everything.
And Mackenzie, I'd like to turn this one to you as well. Yeah. So I'm just going to repeat the question part of it, because it was a little bit of a statement and a question. What resources are available here locally for people who are struggling, may or may not have support, or who are simply seeking community?
Okay. So if you are a person, an adult person, there are lots of meetup groups, or several meetup groups locally, and actually Michael does a great job of making sure that information is available. And he has also gathered a list of affirming churches. If you are the parent of somebody who is gay or lesbian or transgender or many other sexualities or genders, there's PFLAG, which is a great opportunity for you to connect with other parents who have walked this walk. If you are a young person, a middle schooler or a high schooler, there's Triple Point services at Children's Home Society, and they do they're the only free resource for LGBTQ kids in Clark County. And they do a group specifically for transgender kids, as well as a group for middle schoolers and a group for high schoolers. And then there are therapists that specialize in this type of work that can be found if you just were to type it into Psychology Today, you would find us. There's Wild Heart Society, where we have a growing group of gender and sexuality competent therapists to provide a wide variety of services and specialize in things from very early life trauma to couples counseling to gender support services and looking to transition. If you are a transgender person looking to transition, there are medical providers in this community who will help you with that. I'd be glad to give you their information if you want to see me after.
And Joanne, this one is for you, and this is from a community question. How do we forgive people who seek to limit the freedom of expression in others, while at the same time demanding that no one limit their freedom of expression?
Question.
It's a big question.
So I could give you my whole sermon from Luke 17 last Sunday, where the disciples look at Jesus after he says, you've got to forgive people as often as they ask you. And they say, oh my God, give me the faith to do that, because it's hard. I don't know that people always want to be forgiven for their actions, and so they may choose not to say they're sorry or to try to do different. But we discussed earlier that for our own selves, to be able to let that go and to move forward is a really healthy thing to be able to do. So not to own another person's fear and not to own another person's misunderstanding or hatred. That's on them. And they will hopefully work that out, or God will work that out with them. We can only do our very best as we move forward.
If anyone else is strongly drawn to that question. All right. Or Jen.
Yeah, because, the actor, yeah. Forgiving is a very interesting action to take. It's a very cleansing and a very freeing action to take. One of the intriguing things about forgiving is that one can forgive someone for, to use a colloquialism, for being a jerk. One does not have to wait for them to say it's okay or anything, or to I don't know, you don't have to wait for the other person. You can just go ahead and forgive. I am a believer in forgiving. I have a boundary with it, though. I actually do. I have a boundary at forgiving folk who are determined to ignore my humanity. I have a boundary about forgiving folk who are determined to ignore my right to be here. That makes it harder for me personally, you know? I mean, I work at it, but it makes it harder.
Thank you. Michael?
This is my every year event experience. If you've been to Pride here in Vancouver, every year I am working with people who are not happy that we are there in the park. And every year I have to smile and peacefully just ask them to express themselves in a place not necessarily in front of young children, in front of older adults, etc. And every year I breathe deeply and take a moment and say, I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. But what we can both do is at least respect each other so that we treat each other civilly. That's literally all I ever ask when I'm at the event and when I'm in the experience where I'm dealing with a protester. It's like, I appreciate and I accept the fact that this is not something you want. However, at least respect the fact that some of us here do want this. And let us at least find a middle ground.
Okay. What?
I just said Wilson.
Okay. What I'd like to do now is work on a wrap-up. And we've sort of paid, with this couple of minutes limit, we've been a little flexible on it here and there. I'm going to let you go a little bit longer as needed on this one. I'd like to go down the line, and with each panelist, I'd like you to share some closing thoughts with us. The things that I'd love to hear are a variety of things, and to give you some ideas of what we're looking for is if there's anything that we haven't talked about here tonight that you think we should talk about, that you think is an important thing to bring up at this panel discussion. Or you don't have to cover all of these, I'm sort of giving you, take your pick and choose. What are the benefits of Drag Queen Story Hour to the community of the Vancouver Library District? Why or why not is the Drag Queen Story Hour important to our community? And what, based on what you've heard, seen, and felt surrounding this issue, what would you like to see for our community, for vision and future moving forward? If anyone is dying to go first, we can start with you. Otherwise, we
I'll
can.
go first.
Great.
Talking to people who've called the library or message us on Facebook, I think the biggest thing that I see is just a real misunderstanding of what we do at Drag Queen Story Hour. And so I would just really encourage people to come and to see it, to do that, peacefully, and see what it's all about. I know that there's fears about inappropriate things, and I think if you came, you would see that that just isn't the case. At the library, we really care about children, we care about reading and learning, and it's just a joyful time at the library, so I really encourage you to check it out.
All right, I'm going to jump in. So I've gone to libraries since I was knee-high, and libraries helped me learn the language that I'm speaking right now. Without them, I would probably still be speaking French and Cree before I would even be thinking of anything else. The most amazing gift that library provides is that it's here for everybody. There is so much information, and it is such a phenomenal resource for our history, our lives, What's gone on when we weren't here? What's going to continue going on after we leave? And I'm closer to the end of life than I am at the beginning of life. And I think about those things, especially for my kids. What am I leaving to you? And that's what a library does. It leaves to the next generation all the important information about who we are and how we struggled and where we came. And that's what the story hour is. It's a part of the struggle. There's a lot of beauty in watching a performer provide something for a child that they're not necessarily going to see every single day of their life. And giving a child that gift to see a piece of their future, of what it might be or what it might not be, but how much fun it can be to dress up, to see something amazing, to see a man dress as a woman, to see a woman dress as a man, to see every aspect of life that's in front of you is a proof that the diversity of life is the most important thing we have to offer each other. And that's what I see it as. Sorry.
I'm gonna let Joanne go.
Oh, no, Joanne, you got it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please.
So, I'm a little girl dressed up like a pastor today. And there are some scripture verses you can find. 1 Timothy is one of them. It says that I should shut up and sit down. And I believed that for the first 25 years of my life. So even though I grew up in a family of faith, I was not allowed to be a pastor. And I had a stroke when I was a child, and so I was also disabled for a really long time. And there are a lot of verses in the Old Testament that tell me I should stay out of church because there are many things wrong with me. Books were my way of escape. I love to find a hero that I could relate to that would show me how to overcome obstacles. My life is surrounded by books. I won't get enough degrees because I can't stop reading, right? At one point in my life, I read a story of a woman pastor, and then another time I saw a female pastor. And then I saw the two come together, and I said, oh, I knew I could do that. And for drag queen story time, I think about the scripture where Jesus says, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. I don't think any of us should have to hold back. I think we should all approach life as our full, whole selves. And I think we should allow children, especially, opportunities to see themselves in the people around us and in the stories around us.
I think that, thank you. Gosh, that's gorgeous. One thing that occurred when I was young, my parents took me to libraries to hear stories. They took me to the theater to see people perform. We were a family that loved the arts, and it was always a part of our lives. And I knew that it wasn't a part of everyone's. I knew that I was in frankly, a privileged position because my parents had enough money to be able to buy the tickets so I could go to see theater, and I could go to see ballet, and I could go to hear symphonies and stuff. And one of the cool things about going to the library, and I remember when the branch library was built in our neighborhood. I lived in essentially a black neighborhood in the South, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And when that branch opened up, it was such a big deal. Lots of little kids, lots of little African-American kids, riding our bikes to the library. We could go check out books, we could go hear people read books. And it was huge, because there hadn't been a library in our neighborhood. And I think about that. I think about the kids that don't get the opportunity to be read to at home. Not for any bad reasons, just, folks are busy. People have working 2-3 jobs, my gosh, and to have the opportunity to have that kind of entertainment with learning. Why would we stop that? Why would we stop that? Because the other piece that I learned is that you never know where that little gold nugget is going to happen. You never know where that moment that just clicks in a child's brain that's going to say, oh my gosh, I never thought I could be a fill in the blank, you know? And if it comes from a story being read by a chemist, or a story being read by an architect, or a story being read by a drag queen, I mean, why would we want to stop any of that? Why would we want to stop the opportunity for a young person to have that moment of absolute revelation, you know? So that's what I think about. I think of, Drag Queen Story Hour is another opportunity. Thank you.
At an early age, we're taught many, many things. But when books come into our lives, we're taught about our imaginations. Kids will come up with imaginary friends. They'll put themselves in these fantastical worlds of their own. I had that when I was a kid. I was a knight, I was a princess, I was a doctor, I was a fireman, I was anything my imagination wanted me to be. And now at the age of 36, I'm a drag queen. Because I can be a doctor, I can be a fireman, I can be Bette Midler, I can be Cher, I can be Elvis Presley if I wanted to. Because it's using my imagination. Being a drag queen, you make up a character. And Unalicious, who I've had for the last 12 years, she's a little bit of what I wanted when I was 6, when I was 12, 10, seeing movies and reading books and seeing people like Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire, seeing Divine. I know, not for everyone, but like my mother said, in a world full of choices, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, honestly. But we're taught to use our imaginations and to embrace our imaginations. And that's what we're doing as drag queens, as performers, as entertainers. And for having the opportunity to read to children, that's amazing. Because to them, we're the fairy princess, we're the fairy princes and the kings and the knights. We're the cowboys, we're everything that we were taught as young. We're the embodiment of. We're not here to say, oh, your opinions are wrong, you have to be like this, you have to do this. I'm a human being reading a story and doing the voices, that's my favorite part, to young lives that are being taught that their imaginations are important.
Thank you.
Chelsea, you want to follow that?
No, like I'm listening to all of them, I'm like, well, they're just kind of saying everything that I think, I don't know that I can add anything to it. Thinking about why it's beneficial and important to have this. I did write down a couple of thoughts that kind of, I think, apply to this. One being that all children need support and love and care, and they need to feel like they belong. And having a variety of programs at the library, which is for everyone, is a way to do that, is a way to try to reach every kid, every teenager out there. I also think, about this and how it has the opportunity to reduce bullying and discrimination and negative experiences by opening up, our world as adults and the kids' worlds. And I think anyone that has kids in school right now would say that that's super important, to find ways to reduce bullying and discrimination in schools. So, and I think, it's just a way for us to celebrate diversity and give our kids more of an opportunity just to be out there in the world and do more and see more and feel more comfortable. Thank you.
Okay.
Yay, last.
So, I said it earlier, representation reduces feelings of isolation and shame and loneliness. And we know that when people have strong shame self-talk voices, that they're more likely to have a lot of other issues in their life, including addiction, including health problems, including troubled marriages, and they're more likely to not graduate from high school. There's the research is pretty profound on that. And when we can read a story and help a young person see, like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Even if, like, I haven't even told anybody this is a thing, but it just opens up for them the possibility of community in the future and that hope for them to hold on to if they are living in an environment where they cannot be themselves. And I cannot say that any clearer. Supportive families and supportive communities save lives.
Thank you. You know, as we wrap up, I wanted to share that I've attended both of the Drag Queen Story Hours. I wanted to come and check them out and see for myself. And when I saw the first one, it was an amazing experience for me. It brought joy tears to my eyes, which doesn't happen a lot. And the reason that it did was because of the joy in the room. That the children were enthusiastically engaged with the story they were being told, with the activities they were engaging in. And not just that, so were their parents and grandparents who had accompanied them. And this entire family, and these families all looked different from each other. These families were sharing these experiences with each other and with this room full of people. And it was palpable. And I was so moved I actually had to leave. I don't want anybody to think I'm freaking out. So it really, it reminded me, and tonight's conversation, especially everybody talking about the importance of books and libraries and their lives, reminded me of a quote that I can't remember the attribution for, but it's that a library and a book are a wonderful place to lose yourself. A book is also an incredible place to find yourself. And I really want to thank our entire panel for coming here tonight and sharing their experiences and their wisdom with us. And I'd love it if you could give them a round of applause.